So, let's start. You feel free to comment on this or anything else, which I do. The question is Easter a fertility goddess's festival? And the answer to that is very, very simple. And the slightest amount of research will show you that no, it's not. That's a myth. How did this myth come about? Well, there are multiple ways that such things can happen, mostly through the spread of disinformation. There have been movies made and YouTube videos made which support this idea for some reason. There's a lot of written speculation supporting this idea. Not sure what their sources are, and a lot of it is based on the idea of trying to discredit Christianity and other religions by showing their non-Christian or non-whatever roots. There's two problems with this. First off, Easter's roots are firmly Judeo-Christian, and I'll get more into that in a second. Second, any member of a mainstream religion, and in fact one of the things that makes a religion instead of a cult, is aware that the religion is syncretic, which means that it borrows from sources all over the globe, including other religions, political movements, philosophies, and so on. Pretty much any useful religion is sourced in this manner, and we all know that. It's not a surprise to be told that, say, Christmas has some non-Christian roots with the way it's celebrated. I don't think fir trees with lighted candles on them, decked by tinsel, singing songs in languages that weren't extant at the time were anywhere near Jesus' birth. I'm pretty sure almost everybody knows that. So this idea that somehow you can discredit a philosophy or religion solely on the basis of saying it has sources other than itself, yeah, that's kind of part of the point. It's like saying science has a history behind it. It does. You stand on the shoulders of giants, as Newton pointed out. And these are not new ideas. We're very much aware. So, point A, this is going to discredit your Christian friends. No, it won't. Well, except for the idiots. And they kind of deserve it. So, if they're not doing any research in the thing they say they're supposed to believe in. You always got to research things you say you're supposed to believe in. So, what's the other issue? Where does this idea come from specifically? Well, there is a fun chain of thought that goes, Easter is related to the word Eostre, which is related to the word Ishtar, which is related to the word Ishtar. Now, in theory, Eostre and Ishtar are Germanic gods that were practicing, or that they were being worshipped a lot of times, and so we just stole that idea. Problem with that, Easter is called Easter only in Germanic languages. In every other major language, it's either a different word taken from a similar pre-existing faith or belief system or date, or it's related to the word Pesach, which, and I'm horribly mispronouncing that, is Passover. In fact, in Latin and Greek, Pesca is the word for Easter, which is appropriate because Easter is based on Jewish Passover. It's not based on some Germanic fertility goddess who probably wasn't even extant at the time that Easter started to be celebrated, considering these are later religions, and they also, coincidentally, only existed for a very short period of time. By the time anybody knew about Eostre and was able to write it down, there was a man named the Venerable Bede, and he was a British historian and clergyman, and he was the sole source of Eostre. And his basis is he talked to some people who said that some of their ancestors worshipped Eostre. In other words, we have no idea what Eostre or Eostre actually was. We just have third and fourth hand accounts. And so if you're going to base the idea that a major holiday is somehow not what it's supposed to be, you might want to have more of it than one guy. Admittedly, he's a great historian, and he's a source of a lot of our information on the medieval Germanic people, than one guy's attestation. Now, is this fertility goddess related to the actual fertility goddess Ishtar, which we knew, which was very much a precursor to any of the Abrahamic religions? And anybody who is a scholar and a member of the Abrahamic religions would be probably aware of Ishtar or Inanna or one of the similar goddesses like Aphrodite or Isis. Well, this is what we call a false cognate, because you see how Ostara looks kind of like Ishtar? Well, as far as we know, and bear in mind that's as far as we know, because again, one sole testimony. Ostara comes from the Germanic word for east, which is Ost, and that's where we get our word for east. So, Ishtar does not come from that word. Ishtar is not a Germanic goddess. She's a Semitic goddess, and her nomenclature would have been coined roughly 2,500 years BC, so probably almost 3,000 years before Ostara even existed. And I sincerely doubt the Sumerians were thinking about the Germans, who probably weren't in that area at that time. And I doubt the Germans, who had come across from the steppes in Central Asia, were thinking about the Sumerians, who were in, Southwest Asia. I mean, maybe there is a tie. Maybe it's not an accident. But as far as we can tell, their origins are completely different. So there's this linguistic tie between Eostre and Eostre, or, and again, I'm mispronouncing these, Ostara and Ishtar. Those are all false. The only correct tie is Eostre and Ostara are probably the same goddess. Probably. And both Eostre and Ishtar were fertility-esque goddesses. But Ishtar was also a god of war, which was one of her main remits, and Eostre wasn't. Ishtar was also kind of a god of a civilization, and she was a major god. Eostre wasn't a major god, as far as we know, again. So, to answer the second part of the hypothesis, the answer is no. There is no correlation. This is an accident. This entire thing is a bunch of hooey. Now, let's go. When I was researching this, I came across an interesting essay, and my neo-pagan friends should appreciate this. This essay reiterated some of the information which I'm imparting here, as well as some that I wasn't aware of before. But this essay was from a neo-pagan, and she's basically saying, I'm assuming she, because neo-pagan tends to be women. That's just demographically true. Hi, Rick, I see you. Anyways, her contention was that this is insulting to the neo-pagans because people are using their god to kind of discredit another god, which is a dick move, to be fair about it. And she felt that they were ridiculing this neo-pagan god. I mean, I don't know if it's her god. I think that she's just talking about neo-paganism in general. I'm not aware of any people who worship the old Germanic faith. I mean, there's not much record of it in the first place, but I could be wrong. To use one god to attack another god, which is unrelated, is really missing the point on a lot of these things, at least to attack rhetorically. Whether or not Eostre existed and was worshipped, for example, the Norse gods may or may not even have existed. We don't know. Again, there's very few sources, and all of them, like this, were well after Christianity had taken hold and completely changed everything. In the case of the Norse pantheon, it was something like minimum of 200 to 400 years after Christianity had just completely wiped out the Norse pantheon. So we don't, all we have is, again, third and fourth hand information. To use one of these gods to attack another god, which is unrelated, is a false comparison rhetorically, and it's extremely rude. So I would highly recommend not doing that. Also, the basic idea behind this whole thread here and this here is that this is ridiculous. This practice, Easter, is ridiculous because these guys are ridiculous and you don't believe in them, so why should you believe in Easter? But these guys, assuming they exist, weren't ridiculous. I mean, there may be a jester god or something, like, but as far as we know, they weren't terribly ridiculous, and the people who worshiped them were sincere in their belief. So it's not fair to attempt to attack another group, and it's really not kosher to ridicule one group as a way to ridicule another. I mean, that's just, again, a total dick move. So to answer everything, no, it's not true. There's a long and storied history of Bunny Ear Jesus, and this whole comparison is insulting to boot. Now, all that said, remember I mentioned syncretism a little bit earlier? Celebratory traditions are very much taken from local ethnic groups, local traditions, and so you will have pretty much everywhere you go, the tradition in a religious holiday will have its roots in some other belief system which pre-existed it. I mean, there may be an ancillary element like in Easter or Christmas, or it could be a predominant element like in Halloween, which, yes, is a religious holiday. Even though my wife would like me to not acknowledge that. To say that pre-Christian or other than Christian religions have impacted Christianity is 100% accurate. And again, anybody who's studied any of these religions involved would be pretty much aware of it. So stop trying to play gotcha with someone else's belief system. It doesn't work, and you don't know what you're talking about. Speaking of don't know what you're talking about, this is currently being shared on Richard Dawkins's website. if you ever want to meet someone who doesn't know jack squat about belief systems, even though he stole Jung's idea in terms of how belief systems spread, well, you can just look at Richard Dawkins and his new atheist cultists. I mean, those bastards have no clue. So, anyways, thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please post them. If you have anything you would like me to discuss, please post them. And if you want to spam me because you belong to one of those new atheist cults, you are more than welcome to contact me via Facebook. It's facebook.com/oldsins, or you can just find my name. So, take care.